Hi, how you doing? Long time. I haven't done a webcast. Today is Wednesday, the 27th of January 2021. So it's Wednesday, the 27th of January 2021. The time now is about 2 p.m. in the evening. The temperature outside is about 10 degrees. Normally it's about 2 degrees, 0 degrees, but today is the odd day, and the days tomorrow it will get colder. Actually, it has been snowing for a couple of days. In and around the park there is some snowmen that haven't been fully melted, so you got ice on the ground. There have been days when I used to say in my life, about 20-30 years ago, when I get up I used to say to myself, have I got to go to court? Have I got a fine to pay? Have I got a prison sentence? And I used to say, that's a great day. But 20, 30, 40 years later, I don't want to say it doesn't seem as anything has changed, but as you get older, some of us anyway, I find that you get a little bit more emotional, in the sense that you worry about your family and friends, and things like isolation and not communicating with people. That's why there's that proverbial cat woman, that woman that lives on her own with 12, 13 cats. And you know, there are people who you find in their old ages, they have tons of animals, you know, or they end up being hoarders. And especially the hoarding, there's been many programs made of that on television, and I'm sure you've come across one of them. I am not saying I am a hoarder, but I've got quite a few things, believe you me. But talking about that insecurity of from 20-30 years ago to where we are right now. Where we are right now, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and there's an epidemic on the pandemic. And here in the UK, yesterday it was announced that we have reached over 100,000 people dying. Yeah, let me say that again. 100 people dying, have died, not dying, have died here in the UK. And we are in a tier 4 lockdown, with exceptions. Now there's a difference between lockdown and curfew. Curfew is enforced by the police. Lockdown is voluntary, in the sense that you are the person who oversees yourself. Plus there is some police aspects. There's some enforcement aspects of that. In some places you might find the enforcement very, very strict, and in some places you might find the enforcement a bit more lenient. It depends on the enforcer and how much. I see a red car driving through. It depends on the enforcer, you know, whether they're very strict with it, or they're lenient, or you've managed to be one of the exceptions. So back to, we're in the third kind of lockdown in the UK. Well, third kind of stricter lockdown. We've always been from March up to March 2019 last year to now. We've always been on some kind of lockdown. So if you're vulnerable, you are meant to stay in isolation and don't come out. Even in the time when it was eased down a bit. So the difference with this lockdown than the first lockdown is that you are able to go to work. And for the first part, you were able to go to school, and then up to the brink of it, then they said no, you can't go to school or education, or from Christmas you'll be able to go back to education, but in not everybody at the same time. And talking about the lockdown on the schools and education, now there is exception. If you're a key worker, your kids can actually go to school. If you're a key worker, your kids can actually go to school. And there are other exceptions where the sound might have made some noise there, but yeah, if you're a key worker, your kids can go to school, and there's other exceptions. So, but then that's always been the case, even during the first lockdown. There is additional things to the kids not going to school, is where there's been a major thing in the UK where food, school meals. Yeah, school meals. So the poor and the people in deprivation, they've been allowed to have free school meals or tokens or vouchers. And in the weeks before, I can feel movement behind me. People are jogging. In the weeks before, we've had a big uproar about a private company that was given the contract to give school parcels or food parcels to their parents, and this was scanty amount of food, and they were charging the government X amount of money. And this is one of the things about Britain which slowly creeps up on you, the Americanization of Britain, or the corporate and the big businesses move in and the government gives them contracts, and these companies are only there to make money. One of the big failures is a company called Carillion, where the government has given many government contracts to. One of the building contracts, was for London Transport, and partly to build the Queen Elizabeth line, which is the longest underground train line, which hasn't been opened, which is about 5-6 years behind time. This train line runs from, I think, Dover all the way through London, through the centre of London, all the way through to Reading, right? So it starts off overground, then it goes underground, and then it goes overground when it reaches Reading. And this has been like 6 years behind in the building of it, one of the companies that was involved was Carillion. They went bust. The mayor is handling some of that, the London mayor, and the finances. But it's not about the details of that. That's just an example of private companies getting involved, going bust, taking the money, taking billions of government money and delivering something, but not all they're supposed to deliver. The other companies we had is billions of pounds that's gone into the, not billions, millions gone into the track and trace, and as far as I hear, that is really abysmal. There's private companies we have in the coronavirus testing. It's not the NHS, so there's a merger and there's a smerger. Every time we get close to a problem, then the government switches it to the NHS, and then when they're about to launch something, it's launched into a private company in a very, very kind of secretive way. So back to the poverty and the schools and the food parcels that was meant to be given to the children and the families that can't afford it because of the school lockdown. It is a fiasco. I hope they have resolved it. So back again to where we're at. So we are in a major lockdown, tier 4, almost in the whole of the United Kingdom, which means in certain, like Wales now, you can't leave Wales in order to come to England, or from England go to Wales, because it's such an extreme lockdown. But the difference this time around is that you're allowed to go to work, and there's lots of exceptions there's lots of exceptions with this one. And where we are at the moment with the virus is that, as I was saying, 100,000 people have died so far. We've had about 30,000 within the last month. Britain has a version of the virus which is they call the Kent version, the London, we're in a culture of blaming people, even though no one's going, yeah, we all in this. No, it's their fault. It's not us here in London, it's those down here in Kent. And it's this confusion that is causing confusion. And during it has only come into force literally only a couple of days ago, I think Monday. And yesterday, Tuesday, was the day that they actually really enforce it. What's that? It's about people actually entering and leaving the UK. So during the lockdown before, right, they've had corridors, special corridors where people can travel to and from certain countries with no restrictions on being, you need to quarantine or anything like that, which splits the country in the sense that there are some people who stick very strictly to the lockdown, and there's some people who go to Dubai and they call themselves influencers, and they are posting pictures on social media of them at the beach having a great time, and there's sunshine, there's drinks, and they're in the bikini, and they're from London, and they're kind of rubbing it in your face, and we're saying, hey, wait a minute, we're in lockdown here, we're in lockdown here. Why Why are you going on holiday? Well, one of the exceptions is you can travel if you're working, not for holiday. And like I said in the last video there, that people bend the rules and what have you. So with the Prime Minister saying use your common sense, yeah, people do use their common sense. They think they got privileges and they do exercises. Meanwhile, on the other hand, if you're unlucky, during the first day of the third lockdown, the police had come up to single people sitting on benches, and people taking a walk and fining them, and there was a couple of ladies who drove to a place to take a walk, and the police had fined them, and these ladies were clever in the sense that they managed to get that to the press, and it was blown out in a large proportion. And then a few days after that, we had the police showing that they've gone and raided people having parties with over 200 people on the weekend, which is what the police are supposed to kind of properly do. People having parties with over 20-30 people, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to go and do. So people sitting on a park bench or having a walk in a quiet space somewhere, it is really too much. But anyway, there's less of that now. During the first days, the police was a bit heavy-handed, but they're more out there, gatherings over 20 and 30 and 40, 100, 200, people having parties in warehouse. They're now cracking down on it, and they're showing that they're cracking down on it. Not the one or two people having a walk in the park or sitting on a park bench, or driving a little bit of a distance to take a walk and and having a drink, So it had gone a bit ridiculous. Now it's eased off a bit. Now the police are really doing the work that they're supposed to do, which is actually going out there and mass gatherings. There is the law, and there is the spirit of the law. The spirit of the law is that you don't want people in confined spaces breathing each other's vapor or what have you. But then you can find there's tremendous amount of contradictions. People are still using the buses, people are still using the underground when they go shopping. It's like it's still in confined places, and even the park at the weekends, which I avoid, it's there's a tremendous amount of people come out on the weekend. And then you ask the question, some people complain, all these people in the park, but then wait a minute, where they're supposed to go? That's the only place they can go. And what would happen if you stop them going to the park? Well, I think we're really on the real verge of maybe civil unrest and civil breakdown. We have had people gone out and protest about, we don't want to wear the mask, these restrictions are too much, and the police has broken it up and thing. And what we have almost every weekend now is that we do have mass gathering of people having parties over 200-300, etc., etc. That's because people can't take it no more. They're confined. They've got to express themselves. So we're seeing on the weekends the police raiding parties, 200-300 people, not only in the suburbs but in the city. Not only in the city, not only in the inner city, but the affluent part of the city as well. So we're on the verge of breakdown. Now talking about breakdown, and 100,000 people have died. The current situation with the hospital is that they're really running at 98% of their capacity. March they had, in intensive care, you had one nurse to one patient in intensive care or in an incubator, right? Now we have one nurse to 3 and 4, so they've managed to expand that the capacity, but they're still running on critical. There's a lot of people still in ambulances outside of the hospital waiting to get treatment. That may have eased down a bit. So medically we're in crisis. Medically we have a lot of a good percentage of the doctors and nurses actually now away on sick leave, or now are a bit frightened about catching the virus, and we're a bit in a conundrum. But the thing is, when I'm sitting out here in the park and watching all this, what you see behind you is nice and easy. It's away from the maddening world. It's away from the crazy world, and that's why I take a walk in the park, and that's why so the fury or the when I'm insecure or what have you, when I come out, once I'm in the park, the whole mindset changes and the whole attitude kind of changes. So the strength of the crisis out there, you don't get to feel it. You just mellow into whatever mode that is stronger for you. But yeah, so the hospital is in crisis. We really actually running on full capacity. The average infection a day had peaked up to 60,000 people a day. It's averaging about 30,000 people a day. The death rate is about 1,500 on average at the moment. It is actually coming down. There was a few days ago when it was about 1,900. In the peak of March, during the first lockdown, we got around at maximum 1,000 people dying a day. Now we're getting an average of 1,500 people dying a day. The lockdown isn't as strict as it was in March. But like I said at Christmas, what I think the government had in mind was that just before Christmas, it was like, if I give it a scenario about World War I, when they said, right, you're going to go over the trenches, you're going to go over the wall, and you're going to fight the enemy, right? And that was what Christmas was about. And so what the government said, there's an ease down in the lockdown, and it got to a point where, yes, we're going to have a great Christmas, everybody got and 2 days before Christmas they said, whoa, stop. This is, Christmas has been cancelled. No, don't go and see your friends, don't go and see your family, don't go to parties, don't go to your neighbors, all being restricted. But what I think happened, people just continue as normal, and that's why we're feeling the after effect now, the amount of people being sick and the amount of people dying, and So we're taking some, in the analogy of war, we're taking some serious fire now. So from going over the wall at Christmas, right? We now are taking some serious fire. The infection rate is about 30,000, right? In the peak of things, in March, it was only something like 10,000 infection a day. But the thing is, we do more testing. There is more testing centers, and we are better at reducing the mortality. That being that we're better now. Let me just check. We're still recording. Yeah, we're still recording. We're better now at looking after people, and people would survive much more. But if you compare that now to the first wave, then this is very serious. I mean, very serious situation at the moment. But we have some people who take it very, very serious and stick very, very strictly to the rule, and there's some people that just doesn't give a damn. And we've got other people with different attitudes, and so there's this fault line with various different people, and there is confusion, and it's caused by government giving this kind of, yeah, we're number one in this, yes, we're doing more testing, yes, we're this and that. But we're taking some heavy casualties at the moment, and I don't even think some people are aware of it. Yesterday, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson almost held his head in his hands and said, "Sorry, 100,000 people have died. The pain and sufferings of the relationships of those people." And today now, you know, people forget about that was a few hours ago. I mean, I'm sure you can hear in the background the traffic and stuff. Let me spin this around. I'll do a cutaway. So there's a kind of normality. You know, I have some decisions to make. The whole of last year, I was inactive work-wise. I've managed to survive. Now I've got certain bills that's coming up, which is annual. I'm thinking, wait a minute, do I need to put myself in debt? And I'm going to be locked down for another year, and it will just be a waste of money. I have some terrible decisions. But even though everything is locked down, what continues is your bills. The government haven't locked down on our bills. Some people manage to get subsidies or furlough or money. I kind of got some, but it still ain't enough. And if I am not careful in the next couple of months, I am going to be in crisis. In fact, I might as well consider myself being in crisis now. At the end of this year, maybe I might get lucky, there's a certain situation. But it means, do I have to be homeless on the streets before my circumstances change and things will be slightly better? So there's all these up and down major decisions to make, and if you make the wrong ones, you go through a lot of pain, and then you may never get at the pain, or you may never get at the situation, because there's certain situations in life, once you go through that, you can't get back out. You know, they talk about poverty trap. You talk about a good example is if you haven't housing in London is tremendously expensive, right? You can get work, but you can't pay the rent, right? And there's some people I know, which I've spoken to personally, travel from outside of London to central London to work, but they can't afford to live in central London, you know. And so the economic thing, the underlying economic thing is very serious. But there's one major thing with this pandemic, in London we got epidemic on top of the pandemic. Oh, by the way, I gotta say, some people who haven't seen me, who have been avoiding like the plague, there is an epidemic and a pandemic out there at the moment. So, sorry for avoiding you. In real life, in the virtual life, but I will communicate with you. Right, yeah. So the great savior for us in this situation is a thing called the vaccine, right? And what is amazing to me is the whole world is in this vaccine race, vaccine wars. The drink, yeah. The European Union is stopping the manufacturer delivering some of the vaccine to the UK because there's a shortage, and whoever got the contract in first, and there's a little bit of a political row and the Brexit thing, but this whole vaccine thing, the great savior and the great belief is everyone's got to be vaccinated, and so that's given to everybody in America, in Britain, in around the world. But for my money, so there's meant to be two parts of this vaccine, and they've said to people, okay, if you get the first part, you're still good. But there's two things. One, it takes time for the vaccine to actually kick in. When I say kick in, to actually work, and you get your a certain amount of immunity. Now, no one's guaranteed you 100% immunity. No one's guaranteed. They've said, they're officially saying now that once you've been vaccinated, you still continue being careful, wearing a mask, washing your hands, staying away from people, because it takes some time for it to kick in, the vaccine to work. And the second part is, from my point of view, if you only got a half working vaccine in your body, then the virus would mutate and become vaccine resistant. Now, I said that in the last webcast. Now it's officially been said that they're not quite sure the mutated virus. They're not quite sure the mutated virus is going to be vaccine resistant. Now, the voice on that is getting louder and louder and louder. Now, we have about 4 mutant variation on the vaccine. The most prominent version and the champion of the world mutant is the one from London, from the UK, right? It is the champion of the world at the moment. We have another mutant virus. Well, the latest one is from California, Los Angeles, California. Well, not Los Angeles, but California. So there's a mutant strain from over there. There's a South African strain. There's the Brazilian strain. And what I love about Britain, okay, they're stopping everybody now coming in from outside. No, the most virulent strain at the moment is the one from fucking England. Everybody in England is infected. Take it that way, right? Whether you get vaccinated, whether you've got symptoms of the virus, just consider everybody in friggin' England, right, is being contaminated with this virus, including me. And hopefully I'll be here next time, the next few weeks, to actually do another webcast. Yes, consider yourself friggin' contaminated with this strain of the virus, whether you show symptoms, whether or not, whether you've been vaccinated or not. And then yesterday you say you're gonna shut the ports and stop people coming in. No, you gotta stop us getting out. In fact, there's probably very few countries at the moment who let any people from Britain in, because this is the most virulent strain. And look what's happening. Look how the world is looking at this, right? Per million population, we've got the highest we've got the highest death rate. Right, we've got the highest death rate per million population. Now it don't matter who you are, right? It don't matter who you are in the world, including America, right? Britain, anybody from Britain is the worst person to let anywhere near your country or near you, right? But yet from inside, oh, we're gonna stop the friggin' foreigners. Now this is the problem with government, right? This is the problem not only with government over here, but government in America, right? People are not straight, right? They'll say maybe it's not 100% sure, but we're pushing you to do that, you know? And it's just confusing, and so people are making up their own rule. They're existing in their own world. They're doing what they want. And at the moment, the situation, in some sense, is getting worse. Now, the reason why they will say in some sense it's getting better is because the amount of people being infected per day has dropped. So it's around 30,000 and it peaked around 60,000. Right? Now the reason why, one of the reasons why, is that the super spreading days were around Christmas and New Year, right? And the death rate and the infection rate, so not the hospitalization and the death rate, has actually gone up. The hospital is now on sort of maximum capacity. We've got about 4,000 people in intensive care. We've got about 30,000 people in total in hospital for the virus. I think the capacity is around 30,000. But they're finding ingenious ways of expanding the capacity, in the sense that, okay, we'll have one intensive care nurse look after 3, 4, 5. So you get less of that specific treatment, but that's the only way the situation can be handled at the moment. So they could handle that capacity. But what is happening is that the medical staff are now reaching a position of exhaustion. So we literally are in crisis. The medical and the staff, and that is literally in crisis. But meanwhile, down on the streets, everybody thinks things are normal. They're still continuing. Some people, it looks like there's no virus, there's nothing, you know, things are normal. But some people can't go to work. There is not a realization, but there's an acceptance now. None of the non-essential shops are shut, so that what it is in reality is that 80% of the shops are shut, right? So it's only essential foods, medical, the chemist, you know. So there's no pubs, there's no clubs, there is no electronic shops, you know. There's some companies, they got click and collect, so it's like a little hole in the door, and Boris sent me, you got your ticket, you got your card, okay, here it is, it's like a hole in the door kind of thing, so we're in crisis in one sense. Some people are in crisis, and some people it's normal, some people it's ended up better for them. I really can't predict the next stage, and what the government is doing makes it harder to predict, right? When at Christmas they say, okay, Christmas is gonna be okay, go out there, 5-6 people can get together, and 2 days before Christmas they say You can't do that. Shut down, lockdown. Can't do that. We're not allowing you to do that. And then the first few days in January, they said, okay, everybody go to school. And then the professionals, the medical professionals, and the other would say, no, you can't do that. And the government, Boris Johnson, saying yes, everything's fine. And then I think the Monday, Tuesday, everybody went to school. The Wednesday says, all right, no, don't go to school. Danger, get back home. Shut down. And that kind of, the grand old Duke of York, who had 10,000 men, he marched them up to the top of the hill, then he marched them down again. And when they're up, they're up. And when they're down, they're down. And when they were halfway up, he marched them down again. Oh, the grand old Duke of York, he had 10,000 men. He marched them up to the top of the hill, then marched them down again. And when they're up, they're up. And when they're down, they're down. And when they're... Now, there must be something about that story about the guy named Duke of York. It's like ring a roses, the pocket full of posies. That's about the Great Plague. I think that was in the 17th century sometime. Or is it 16? Anyway, it was one of the Great Plague. Ring a roses, the pocket full of posies. A tissue, they all fall down. This is the coronavirus today. It is a respiratory disease. If you sneeze, if you cough, if you do that, recommendations are stay in, don't go out, don't stay in, isolate yourself, right, and get a test. So that's where we are in the thick of the virus at the moment in the UK. Let me start to conclude. Some people say that if the virus is anywhere in the world, it is everywhere in the world. Right? So we have to be in this thing together. You can be as selfish as you want to be, but you could be as, if you get your inoculation, your vaccine, you get your vaccine for this brand of the virus, but the virus is mutated. We've got about 4 different versions of the virus out there at the moment. They're not even sure that some of the mutations, whether the vaccine can handle it. You're guaranteed that it's going to mutate again, just like the common cold or the flu, right? It mutates all the time. So you may be okay, right? You've got your vaccine, you feel you're okay, your country's locked down. But the other countries that have one form of the other of the virus, right? Eventually it will get to you, right? So it's not about this selfishness thing about we've got the vaccine or I've got the vaccine, or I've been vaccinated, right? It is the thing that anywhere in the world the virus is at, it is everywhere in the world. Eventually it'll get to you. Eventually, when you put your guards down, eventually when you start to fly to different places, eventually when the ban is lifted, it will get to you. The virus is very, very clever, and even if you are strong and you've got the virus the first time round and you've recovered, don't believe you're immune, right? Because it'll come around again, it will mutate, and it will take you out. What am I saying? I'm saying we have to look after each other, not only locally, not only nationally, but internationally as well, right? It's like they say about pollution. The the wind will blow the pollution from one place to the next. So it's not that you don't pollute, it's the other person. Once they're doing it, it will reach over to you some way or somehow. It's like they find the plastic bags at the bottom of the ocean, right? Plastic bags. So what do? They said they're going to charge us for the plastic bags, right? Whether that have reduced it or not, So that's what I'm saying. So if it's anywhere in the world, it is everywhere in the world, and so it's up to us, you, me, to look after our brothers and sisters around us and everywhere in the world. I've got lots more to say, lots more to go on about, but I think that's enough for today. So I'll see you next time.